we all know, is working, used to be with Coalmine, and now he's with the Guardians of Martin County and does wonderful presentations and is in his own right. I can never get it straight as to you're kind of an ecologist and a biologist and everything.
I'm an ecologist.
He's everything. He's wonderful.
But I haven't been around long enough to get a few gray hairs and go through a number of the wards in Martin County. So I'm pleased to have been asked to come back today to talk about small wetlands. We've heard several of the speakers talk about this win that we just had. And so some of you I know were involved with that from the get-go. But we can't believe that that war is really past us. We fought it about 8 years ago. In fact, when this issue came up, somebody asked me, don't you have a presentation about wetlands? Didn't you give it at one of these forums? And I went back, and it was at the very early era of digital photography, but I found my electronic file from, I think, 2004 that was about urban wetlands. And so certainly this change that was proposed this year was a little bit different than it was back then. But anyhow, it's an issue that will come back, so I'm very pleased that so many people got involved with it before. I was asked to speak on that before this item got pulled from the agenda for next Tuesday. So I haven't cut it out entirely, but I have changed it around a little bit. So bear with me. I know Donna advertised this as going on until 4 o'clock. So I have 40 minutes to talk. I won't do that. I'm going to start off with acknowledging how we came to get this win at the LPA and the County Commission. And I'm going to start off by doing that with a lesson that I learned from Maggie at a County Commission meeting at least a decade ago, when she knew that there were people who were in the audience who didn't want to speak up on whatever the issue was. They didn't want to go to the podium, whatever it was. So she turned around and said, for those of you who are representing such and such or are on the positive side of this, stand up. So I'm going to do that right now with those of you who took some sort of action in this recent wetland situation, whether you came to the wetlands workshop a month ago, or you came to the LPA meeting, or you sent an email to the LPA members, or to the county commission. I'd like to start off with the sponsors of that wetland workshop. So if you're involved with either or any of these organizations, stand up as I read off the organizations' names. So we're going to start off with the Conservation Alliance. I'm sure that there are a lot of conservation, and then just keep standing. So we're going to see who all's here. Do we have anybody here from Bull Sugar? Okay. Treasure Lands Foundation. Okay, thank you. The River Keeper. Anybody from the River Keeper here? Usually Marty is in attendance, but okay, yeah. The River Warriors, Gail was here, but she left. Okay, a couple more people standing up. Pegasus Foundation. Barbara. But Barbara was already standing, so she was taking a leaf out of Jenny's message here. The Martin County chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society. Quite a few people. Thank you very much for coming. Maggie mentioned early on our comp plan. And certainly the fact that wetlands protection is one of those major tenets in the comp plan is what caused the Guardians to become involved with this issue of protecting small wetlands. The Guardians are often, I guess criticized is the right word, for being against everything. You complain against this, you don't want that. What are you for? We're for small wetlands. We're for fiscal conservancy, very definitely, smart growth. So when we heard through one of Jenny's analyses of future comp plan amendments what was going on, we saw that there were, I don't know, 9, 10, 15 of them that have now made it to the point that Sarah was talking about. The Guardians took a step back and said, wow, we cannot muster the forces to oppose every one of these issues. We got to figure out what's important here and what isn't. And so what we decided to focus on was the one comp plan amendment that was going to go kind of across the board throughout the county within the urban services district. The other ones, although they were startling in what you were telling us about their increases in density, that's one piece of property and it's going to affect traffic generally at that location. What was proposed in this comp plan amendment, though, was to affect the non-tidal small wetlands throughout the urban services district. So the Guardians selected that as the issue that we were going to focus on. I do work for them. It's a contractual arrangement. They allocated me, approved my work authorization here to go out and kind of figure out what's going on with half-acre wetlands in Martin County. So let's first talk about some of those issues, one being the Urban Services District. It's a well-known, well-published map here within the county's mapping information database that any of you can access online to know either the primary services area, which is in the pink, or the secondary in the more lavender color. So we were trying to then figure out how to go about this whole process of dealing with what's going on. And I guess my cynicism through the years does tell me that when there are comp plan amendments, this is the equation. It is politics, and whether it's, like Maggie said, it's democracy in action, the reality of it is that the decision makers are politicians. So we have to play that game. The big key, though, in my opinion, in what gets approved and what doesn't, is the extent to which the applicant submits information that has this backup information called data and analysis. When they put it in an application for an amendment to the comp plan, they are required by our regulations to show what the need for it is and how it will affect this and that and everything else. So this particular comp plan amendment didn't have much in the way of data. I won't say much, didn't have any in the way of data and analysis. They couldn't tell us how many of these half-acre wetlands are within the Urban Services District in Martin County. Is it 1, 2, is it 5, is it 10, is it 20? So that's one of the things that the Guardians asked me to look into. The next is public input, and that's why all of you are very definitely critically important to what the outcome was going to be. So when I thought this next item was going to come before the commission agenda, I thought it's going to be a challenge to mobilize the forces again. We were successful in doing it at the LPA. I have never been to an LPA meeting where there was a full house and that everybody who was there was on one side. Usually you go to an LPA meeting and there's maybe 10 people in the audience and they're just there for their own particular agenda item. But there we were, an entire room of people. So I thought, wow, that was great, but we've got to do this a couple more times. And I don't know the extent to which you all are aware of that process. So I knew if I put up the whole flow chart here, Donna was going to give me the hook. But follow with me here, and I think you'll understand the process. So it starts when an application gets submitted into the county that they want to amend a comprehensive plan for something. Staff reviews it, and one of the speakers at the LPA meeting I thought, had an interesting perspective. That comp plan amendment was so lacking in information, staff probably shouldn't even have allowed it to be on the LPA agenda. They should have said, at least give us some substance here to make this worth our time. Well, they didn't do that, so it went through the process. So the next step is, after staff reviews it, they go through, they kind of figure out what the impacts would be, and they come out with a staff report, and it's either for a recommendation for approval or denial. Well, so from there, the next step is it goes to the LPA hearing. So Maggie strategically organized the schedule for that workshop, the wetlands workshop that was held in this room to add a standing room on the crowd. She strategically scheduled that to be just before the LPA meeting. So I'm glad that it was so helpful in bringing out people to come to the meeting, because a big key of that is public input. So from there, it goes to the first hearing at the county commission, and that would be what's called the transmittal hearing. Some of you will recognize that phrase, and that's what was to have been this coming Tuesday. So part of Donna giving me this direction and this topic for today was to remobilize the force, because just because the LPA came out with a recommendation for denial, as staff did, you might think if you read the newspaper or something like that, it's a dead issue. It was listened to once, it's not going to go anywhere. Well, that's not the way it is. Even with the recommendation for denial, the applicant can, and in this case did, proceed forward because they felt they could go to the county commission, and even with a recommendation of denial from the staff and from the LPA, they could still approve it. So they thought they could, and this is where I was keyed up to ask all of you to come to this coming Tuesday's meeting. So what comes out of that is the commission could have either given it a red light, and then it would have died for this cycle running out. They could have given it a green light or a yellow light saying, well, we don't really like this, but if you make some changes, or we're going to send it up to Tallahassee, and we're going to see what kind of an effect, what kind of input they would have. Or they could definitely give it a green light. They could jump right in behind it. So Sarah was just telling us about all of those other LPA comp plan amendments. And they're at this same point, where coming out of next Tuesday's meeting, they could very likely get the green light. We were all kind of laughing about how absurd they were, and one of the questions was, are these even real? Absolutely they're real. When they come out of the commission meeting this coming Tuesday, probably with a 3-2 majority, but who knows, the next step is exactly what's going to happen here. The commission is going to send them up to Tallahassee. Tallahassee will review it. Those of you who have been around for a few years will remember something called the DCA, the Department of Community Affairs. They were the entity that was kind of our backstop on growth management issues. And at times they would look at our comp plan amendments and they would say, ooh, we don't really like this or like that. And so it would come back to Martin County, or whatever county, and that would give the county the opportunity to make some changes to them, or just turn them down entirely. But the bottom line is DCA has been replaced by Governor Scott with this group called the Department of Economic Opportunity. We can't rely on them as a backstop for any kind of prudent growth management. So what would have happened in this case is it would have come back to us with comments from DEO, likely saying, go ahead, destroy those weapons, it will be good for your economy. So then it comes back to the county commission, and this is what we all generally refer to as the adoption hearing. This is another opportunity for public input. So I was going to have to come back to you guys, and we were going to all figure out how back in whatever this would be, about June or July, we were going to be able to incite you all to come back to the commission a third and final time to hopefully come out with the whole red light, yellow light, green light thing, and we were going to hope that it would get killed at that stage. If it didn't, though, and it got the green light, that's when it would go into implementation. And implementation could either take us this way, start bulldozing those little trashy wetlands, they don't amount to anything, or our hope was that it was going to get that red light and we were going to continue to have those urban small wetlands. So when we come to you in the future and we ask for your assistance, don't just say, oh, darn, didn't I already do that? It really takes perseverance at each step of the way for us to get to the result that we want. So Jenny was just talking about public input, and very definitely, I don't know out of all of you who participated in all of that, how many of you had meetings with the commissioners. Certainly I know that there were some so that we could get the feel for what the vote might be. The correspondence is good, whether it's a written letter, those handwritten letters still, they carry a lot more weight than a blanket email that just goes out to all of them. Emails are good though if you don't want to do anything else. What the Guardians chose to do, though, is take it to the next step. And that was we read the staff report, and the staff report was pretty good. They were saying,